Alright, we got the recorder on. And just out of curiosity, I want to find out what is the traffic condition on the Bay Bridge. So Bay Bridge. Just purely out of curiosity. This has nothing to do with this class. And we want to turn on traffic. How do I turn on traffic? Nope, that's not it. There we go, traffic. Well, surprisingly, not a whole lot of traffic pattern. There's a little bit of traffic here. Well, considering most of the population now in San Francisco are people who work for Google or retirees, this would not be a good time, this would not be a time where you expect a lot of traffic, because people who work for Google are now at work, and people who retire are still at home. Or they might have gone for Cyber Monday shopping online at home, yes. Or the library, where they can get free internet access, right? So, okay. So are there any questions about your projects? Because we have hit just about everything that we need to talk about. I'm going to go to the class just to be sure that we are not missing anything, really, really important. But I'm pretty sure that we covered everything that we need to talk about in this class already. Okay, so we'll go ahead and go over the syllabus. Well, actually, let me show you something that you normally would not see, but this is actually kind of important. And I think at some point you guys will be able to see it too, but not right now. It is called the curriculum of a particular class. Have I shown you? Yes? No? Okay. Okay, let me show you what a curriculum looks like. I think the recorder is on already. Let me just double check. Yep, okay. All right, so curriculum surfaces, there we go. And we're going to look up the curriculum of this particular class. There we go. And this is 362. Okay, so right here you can see the curriculum of this class. And out of the 4 campuses of the Community College District, ARC, A for ARC, F for Folsom Lake College, and then S for Sac City. So Consumers River College does not have an equivalent class to this one. They do not offer a mobile app programming class over there. So out of the 3, okay, let me show you what the other campuses are doing. So this is being revised. So let's go ahead and check this one out. Okay. So this is being revised as we see. Okay, so they have changed the curriculum to have the same advisory as this class, but that's not how they used to have it. Okay, they used to have a long prerequisite list. Like you have to take the Java class before taking this class, which means you have to go through, okay, just think about the entire chain of classes that you have to take in that case. So you have to start with P300, which goes to 360. 360 goes to 401 directly, and then after 401, then you can take 362. Okay, so you're talking about 4 semesters automatically, which is 2 years, right? And that's assuming these classes are offered when you need it, and you can get in the class when you have time to take it. Okay, so most people cannot do it in just 4 semesters. Most people would probably take 6 semesters or so to get through all of these classes. And I think that is still the case over at Sac City, because we had to talk about it, with the different colleges, and they choose to, yep, right here. So at Sac City, the class has no advisories, which means, well, it's better off if you take these classes first, but it's not required. So at Sac City, they require 301, 360, 400, or 401. So they do use a word "or" here, which means you only really need 301 to take this class, whereas 301 is a prerequisite of this class. You have to be taking it in the same semester, but not necessarily before this class. Okay. But that's not why I'm here. The reason why I'm here is to show you the learning outcomes. Okay, so we want to make sure that all of these learning outcomes are met. Okay, acquire and install the necessary development tools for mobile device software development. We'll be good on that one. You have your browser, you have Java, right? Okay, potentially Java, it depends on your actual platform. You can also install AI Companion or AI Setup on your PC or Mac in order to use the emulator, but that part is optional. It depends on whether you have an Android device or not. Do we know how to develop basic programs with a graphical user interface? I guess that's kind of subjective. Okay, what is basic? Buttons, text boxes, check boxes. Okay, I haven't really explicitly talked about check boxes, but check boxes are check boxes, right? I mean, you can tell whether it's checked or not. Okay, do we talk about how to test and debug programs with a graphical user interface? We do that a lot. Okay, because I write the programs in class, and then sometimes the program doesn't work the way it's supposed to. Okay, then we have to go through the whole process of debugging. What about published mobile device programs? We talked about that briefly. Okay, are there any particular topics here, or are there particular learning objectives that you want me to kind of go through that, just to make sure that we get all those topics, or any specific questions about those? Any questions? So all of you will be writing something like Pokemon Go. But I saw a lot of your projects, and I think some of those are publication, worthy. Okay, now whether you want to charge people for money or not, that's a whole separate issue. But I think many of your apps, that I have seen are publication ready. In other words, people will download and install it. Okay. All right. So the next part, is section 4, which is course topics. Basically what I'm supposed to talk about. So let's make sure that we hit all of these too. I think they are mirrored in Moodle, just to be sure. We'll go through all of these. Introduction to mobile devices such as smartphones and tablets. I think we got that. Examples of mobile applications. We got that, but the examples are increasing on a daily basis. Just over the weekend, my wife bought a Fitbit. Okay, do you guys know what is a Fitbit? Okay, so she got a Fitbit. What's the name of that one? It's Charge 2. So this one has a heart rate monitor attached to it, and and she was doing it the whole weekend. She was exercising, going out for a walk. The whole weekend, because the app has some really kind of cool features. It has some features that I would say is a kind of like a crossover between a fitness program and Pokemon Go. You can basically say, okay, you're just walking in Sacramento in your neighborhood, but they can map your walking distance to some other place like Yosemite, to Yellowstone National Park, and so on and so forth. So they can basically say, okay, according to what you have done, you would have walked this trail in Yellowstone National Park, up to this point. I think that is a really great motivation, because especially if it shows pictures, like a 360 picture at those really scenic places. So you basically just walk to unlock more pictures. Yeah, go ahead.
So you could use it to actually prepare for a trip to the park or something.
More or less. Yeah. But it won't prepare you for off the trail kind of adventures.
Yeah.
There was a news item of one person who walked off trail for more than 200 yards and fell into a hot pool. And there was nothing to recover.
Oh.
Yeah. So you might want to look up that one. But in Sacramento, there are no hot pools, okay? So you are safe.
Really, really, really hot, huh?
It's not just the heat of the pool. I think the chemicals in the pool is one of the factors too.
Oh.
Yep.
There's like hot springs that you can go take baths in.
Those are
Something else.
very diluted, I guess. Hot springs. Yeah, but in Yellowstone National Park, it's boiling hot.
Sulfur.
And also has all kinds of stuff in it too. Sulfur is one. Okay. So resources available. We talked about Bluetooth. Okay, the Bluetooth. If you need to talk to a Bluetooth device, you need to know how to handle a protocol. So that really is kind of more advanced programming. Accelerometer, compass, GPS, networking, camera, microphone, speaker, and etc. Mobile devices as a surface terminal of cloud-based applications. We kind of talked about that too. Okay. What kind of quote-unquote surface terminal of cloud-based applications are we talking about? Not necessarily apps that you're writing, okay, but as an example. Google Documents, okay, for instance. Okay, Google Documents is a cloud-based application because all you need to use Google Documents is just a browser. So all the logic of handling, editing, and whatnot is on the other side. Your mobile app, for the most part, is just a quote-unquote dumb terminal to edit your documents. Okay? All right. Did we talk about objectives and values of your applications? I think we spent a pretty good deal of time talking about that. Did we talk about the types of users or actors in the unified modeling language? Okay. Actions that each type of user can perform, the use cases. Okay. Application design capturing of a mock sequence. I don't think we talked about this one too much. We touched on it, but not too much. It's called it's not a use case diagram. There's a name for that. The name evade me for the time being. Okay, but there are ways to capture like a mock sequence of using a particular application where you can log mock screens and user interaction. So you can basically play out a particular scenario of using the application. Transitions from one screen to another screen, which is basically using state diagrams. We talked about that one. Okay, we definitely talked about this one. Settings and parameters of the application, the use of a drawing program for documentation. In this class, the best way to document or to document the program is just to take screenshots of your App Inventor screen, or you can run the emulator and then capture the screen of the emulator. Okay, it's just make screens that are non-functional, take a screenshot of those, and then put it into the document. Software development environment, host environment, target environment. Okay, so are there any questions about these three? What is a host environment right now? Okay, what is the host environment that we use in every single class? What operating system do we use as the host environment? No. The host environment is where you write your program. So with App Inventor, the host environment that I use, in class is Linux. Okay, but the only thing that I need in Linux in this case is just a web browser. Okay. In your case, is Mac OS 10, okay, in some cases, or, in other cases, in Windows. The target platform, what is a target platform?
Android.
Android in this case, okay, because, App Inventor is specific to Android. Okay, very good. Source code versus an application package, okay. What is source code in our case? What is source code in App Inventor? Not the file, but, what does it look like when we talk about quote-unquote source code?
Blocks.
Blocks, exactly. So we only have blocks. We don't have actual syntax to deal with in this class. An application package is what extension does an application package have? APK. Okay, very good. What is cross compilation? Do we have any type of cross compilation in our case? It's not done on the PC, but it's done on the other side. Okay, so every time you say build your application, it is cross-compiling, and it creates the APK file. So it converts, the process to convert the blocks into the APK file is quote-unquote cross-compilation. Yep?
And cross-compilation means pulling from multiple libraries, basically.
The word cross in this case is means that your host environment and your target environment do not run the same operating system. Not necessarily the same operating system. And in many cases, it is true because you're using Windows, as your host environment, and then your program is running on an Android platform. They do not share anything in common at all. Now, in my case, you can kind of say that, well, Linux and Android are related, so they're not exactly completely different. But cross means, your development platform is different from the environment where you run the application, and that's where the word cross comes in. Do we talk about virtual test platforms? What do I use every single class? AVD. And what does the V stand for? Virtual, exactly. Here we go. Application uploading. Okay, how do we upload a program that is done to the device that we use for testing? Okay, there are two ways to do it in this class. If you use AI Companion, that's an easier way, but it has limitations. Then the other way to do it is called, what is the program? What is the name of the command line program that I use in order to upload and install APK files?
Bash? Oh, you mean the program itself?
Yep. I have to change folder and then type some commands in order to install stuff. It's /a d adb. Okay, so adb is the command that I use for uploading the application to the target environment to test it. Okay. All right. So this is for lab hours. What stuff that we need to do. Use a designated host environment. Install software development tools. Create and test a sample program. Remember the first program, the meow, the cat program. That's what we did. Overviews of the files of an application project. That we did not do. Okay, this we did not do. Introduce roles of each important file. We did not do this. Why not? This will be extremely important when it comes to Android Studio. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, because it's done in the background, really. You
exactly.
can load up image files and so forth in this environment, but it's not separated the way it is in Java development.
That's right. Because because App Inventor is handling all of that stuff in the back end, so that we don't have to deal with that. Okay, so that's why this is not applicable in our case. We did talk about XML a little bit because when we explore how TinyDB stores the files or store the data, that's when we talk about XML a little bit. In this original context, XML is used for some of those important files of an application project. In the next class, in cisp362, we'll get into those files, but in this class, it doesn't really apply. We also do not have a whole lot of layout control for hierarchical static elements. The only thing that we do have for this purpose are the arrangements: horizontal arrangement, vertical arrangement, and table arrangements. So those are the only layout control that we have when we are using App Inventor. Okay. How the source code connects to user interface resources, easy peasy. Okay, so we talked about that definitely. Basic input events such as click and long click, we talked about those. We talked about event handlers, which is the core of app programming. Okay, so with app programming and most GUI programming too. Okay, this is not limited only to apps, but most GUI programs are event driven. In other words, the browser itself is event driven. Right now, the browser is not doing a single thing. Because I'm not doing anything, I'm not highlighting, I'm not clicking. The page itself doesn't have anything to update. There's no JavaScript running in the background. So the browser is not doing a single thing. Okay? The moment I click on something, the moment I click on a link, then it responds to that and go like, oh, okay, we need to go to that URL, retrieve all the resources and display stuff. So it is event driven. Even this, okay, if I scroll, that's an event. Okay, so scrolling are events as well. We talked about dialogues, okay, using what component gives us the capability of using dialog boxes?
Notifier.
The notifier, very good. The notifier can do other things too, but one of the things that it can do is to make use of dialog boxes. Connect input events to dialog outputs. Okay, so we What are input events? What do you think are potential input events? Clicking a button. Yep, clicking a button, changing the text of a text box. Now that is a lie, okay? Because in App Inventor, it does not actually generate an event when you type something in the text box, which is really annoying, okay? Because then you cannot say, oh, as you type, you can do some checking and make sure that your phone number looks right and stuff like that. We don't have that capability, but I was able to emulate that capability. Do you guys remember there was one class when I said, okay, since App Inventor cannot do this, but I can emulate it. How did I emulate the effect of processing text in a text box as the end user is typing?
You use pulling effectively.
Sorry?
You use the timer so that you could keep pulling it.
Yep, I use a timer to pull it, which is not the best way to do it. But given the lack of the event to tell me, oh, this text box has its content changed, short of having that particular event, the only other thing I can do is to use a timer to do it. Okay. Okay, advanced layout objects, we don't really have these options. Okay, unfortunately, we don't have these options in App Inventor. All right, so let's talk about this stuff here. We do not have most of these things. Okay, but we did talk about object-oriented programming, despite not having classes, not having inheritance, and we do have objects but do not have dynamic allocation. The only thing that we have in this class are components. Okay? But components by itself is still object-oriented programming. Why is it object-oriented programming? If I say, okay, when this button is clicked, I want the number of that label to be incremented by 1, okay? How do you get started with specifying those blocks? You think of the components, right? So the first thing you do is to say, okay, which component, the event of which component is going to trigger this operation. So you're thinking about not the click, but the component whose click you want to pay attention to. So that will be the button, right? So the button click is the event that you want to capture. And then you say, I want to update the label to do blah, blah, blah. So when we talk about that in English, update the label so that it is one more than what it used to be, the focus is the verb, okay? Update, right? And that's what we are traditionally trained to think in conventional procedural programming. We focus on what to do, okay? But in object-oriented programming, that's not what we focus, okay? What do we have to figure out first when we say update the label, the text of that label so it's one more than what it used to be? We think of the label first, okay? We think of the object. A component is an object. So we are still using object-oriented programming, even though we are not using classes and dynamic allocation and stuff like that. And all of those things will be in the next class, for sure, okay? We still have to talk about data that is specific to an object and methods that are specific to an object, not to a class, because we don't have a concept of a class. Sort of we do and sort of we don't. Okay, so let's just kind of dwell on this a little bit. Okay, so I want to dwell on this one a little bit by using an example. Okay. And by the way, every single class that you take here has a curriculum corresponding to it. So you can request your professor to show you the curriculum for any particular class and see what you're seeing here, okay? All right, so I'm just gonna show you guys what I mean by, we are still doing object-oriented programming. I'm just trying to find a screen where, oh, okay, maybe I don't have a tab for that anymore. Okay. Start a new one. We'll get to, well, this one is fine. We go to blocks. Okay, we have a button and we have an image. So let's just take a look at the button. So a button has these events. Okay, these are all events that these are the events that can be generated. Okay, and it doesn't have any particular methods. I need to pick something that has methods, and the best one to pick or the one component that has a lot of methods is a canvas. A canvas has a lot of methods. So we'll pick out a canvas. We're not going to use it, okay? I'm just using it as an example. So when you look at the canvas, it has got events, and the purple blocks are the methods. In other words, given a particular canvas, what can it do? Okay? It can clear, okay? Everything on that canvas is now gone, okay? So a method is what something a component can do, okay? An event is how a component can get your attention, okay? Like, oh, somebody touched me, tell me what to do with this, okay? Somebody dragged a sprite on me, tell me what to do about it, okay? So those are the things that it will ask you and say, okay, what do I do about this, okay? The kind of the brown ones. The purple ones are the things that it can do. We can draw circles, we can draw lines, we can draw a point, draw text, and so on. And then we move down to here. These are the properties of a particular component. In other words, they don't really do a single thing, but there are things that you can change. And some of these, when you change, it is reflected on screen, and some other things may not be reflected on screen. Are we doing okay so far differentiating events, methods, and also properties from each other? Okay. Well, I'm pretty sure this is not new to us. It's just that we have never seen all of those things this way. Unfortunately, we do not have menus. In App Inventor, there is no such thing as a menu. And this has been a moving target. Okay, for those of you who have been using Android for a few years, you might have noticed that the way menus are handled have changed from one version of Android to the next. Have you guys noticed that? Okay, and there's not a whole lot of consistency. This is also why I really like Linux, because the way Linux does things with all the GUI programs is, okay, let me start a very conventional program that has a menuing system. Okay, so LibreOffice is one of those. So traditionally, when you're dealing with a full screen thing, okay, menus is that, okay, but this is not possible with a mobile app. Why not? Why do you think a mobile app cannot use a conventional menu system?
Too big.
There's not enough space. Exactly. Okay, there's not enough space on a mobile app to deal with this. Okay. So what do we do instead in mobile apps?
Make different windows.
Okay, so let's see. I don't know whether I can get screenshots for this. So let me. So most apps have a little kind of start button on the upper left corner. Okay, let me show you something that I did over the weekend. It is related to apps. So I got ring.com. Costco had this thing on sale, so I bought one. Now, you might say, Tech, we don't need to know what you do at home or what you buy at Costco, okay? It is still related to this class. Why do you think this relates to this class? It's a doorbell. How does it relate to an app class? How does a doorbell have anything to do with apps on a mobile device?
Yeah, so.
Well, it's a camera doorbell. So the doorbell you cannot see because of the poor contrast on the screen. There's a video camera here. So there's a usual button that you push to kind of get the attention of the person in the house. There's also a camera and also a speaker.
Can you see on your phone?
Yeah. Yeah, I can see it from here. Okay, that's the really cool thing is it is web-based. Okay, it is not just the communication through Bluetooth between this device and my phone, so I have to be home to answer the door. So let me see if I can. I don't have the document camera attached. So let me see if I can. I don't know what to do. Let's see. I did this. Oh, I can do this. I'm gonna Okay, so the recording is back up, and then I'm going to use the document camera so that you can see the app itself. And also, over the weekend, to my surprise, Pokemon Go is still going. People are still playing, apparently, because the developer is still developing. Multimedia.
Surprised.
You're not surprised?
No, not really.
I'm kind of surprised because that whole thing is. I thought it's pretty much gone.
People were getting really excited when Ditto came out.
When what?
They released the Pokemon Ditto.
Oh.
Yeah.
Pokemon itself is a really, really old idea.
It's based on bug catching.
It's based on what?
Bug catching.
Bug catching. That's correct. Okay, so let's see.
Okay.
But it makes good money. That's why it's still. Okay. Is it the right cable? Yep, it is. Let me start again. There we go. Okay. Okay. It's tilted because I need to change the geometry. Oh, okay. It doesn't have that. Okay, a few things I have to do first. Well, and my battery is running low, but it'll be okay. It will last for a little bit. There we go. Change the focus. There we go. Okay, so this is the app that I was talking about. It hooks up to a doorbell, a video doorbell. So you can go to a device, and even through the web. Depends on the bandwidth. This is not, it's actually being fuzzy right now. It's connecting through the internet to the actual view from my home. So I'm looking through the doorbell, quote unquote doorbell, at the front of my house right now.
So the camera's always on?
The camera can be always on, and it runs on the same transformer that powers up most conventional doorbells.
So you just took out the old one?
You take out the switch, and then you wire in the camera itself. So now it is it's hardwired, and it has a battery mode as well. So if you don't actually have any hardwired, you can run it on battery. Then you have to recharge every few months or so. It's still pretty impressive.
The video is actually over the Wi-Fi?
The video itself is over Wi-Fi, correct. So it has to hook up to your Wi-Fi router at home. But it's seeing out of my. You guys cannot see as much. Okay, let me see if I can change the contrast.
The width of the camera.
It is supposed to be 180. The view itself is 180, but that means it is a fisheye lens.
It's like this. Right?
Correct. Yep. So if I,
Okay, so it is on the side.
yeah.
Because most doorbells are on the side, right? Facing.
Yeah, so the actual app has to be in a horizontal or landscape orientation.
Yes.
Okay.
So a person shouldn't
The device itself is only about this big,
It will
and
still see.
yeah, correct. So if there's a package, I can tell somebody drop off a package. It also has motion sensors on it, so it can be triggered by motion.
Wow.
And it has a chime that you can install that is included in the package. So you can program it so that when the motion detection is triggered, it will give you a chime, and you can use a different tone for motion detection as opposed to somebody actually ringing.
It would be neat if it would talk to the person. when they
You can
hear
talk
it.
to the person too.
I
Yeah.
mean,
So
have it talk, like if someone tried to steal your packages or something, and say, hey, what are you doing?
yeah, you can. I can enable talk right now, and
That's fun.
let's see. I turn all the volume all the way down. Let's see. It's supposed to be on. So basically, what I say now, really should go to the other side, and you can see it's raining. I don't see any actual wind going on, but that's what it is. This is kind of cool, and it is an app. Okay, it really is an app, and the app is what sells this particular device. Without the app, and you have a fixed monitor at home, to the video camera, it wouldn't be selling nearly as much.
It does look like still image. It looks like still image, not the video.
Well, because nothing is happening, right? There's no.
Yeah, the tree even.
Well, I can see. It doesn't move. I don't really
But
see.
you tried it, right? You tried it at home.
Yep, I did.
So, yeah.
Yep, it can also record recent events, so you can actually see all the events. Most of these are just me testing it the day before, and so right now we are seeing a live view, which is at 11:04. So if there's any type of motion trigger, it will see it.
Record it.
It will record it.
Did-
Yep.
I have a question.
Yep.
Do you think this app was written by how large group of people?
How large?
Group
Sorry.
of people.
How many developers?
Yeah.
That's a good question. I do not know.
Like approximately speaking.
I will try to address that question, but the point of getting to this app is to show you where the menu button is, okay? So the menu button is now here. So when you click the menu button, then you can start to change all of these things. And you can go to my plan. So they want me to pay $3 a month to use their cloud storage to store the video, which has the added advantage of being able to check all the recorded clips from anywhere. So, because otherwise you can only get a live view when somebody rings a bell, or just when you need to
Where's
look.
it record right now?
Right now they give you a trial for a month for free, and then after a month they want you to pay either $30 per year or $3 per month. So, but that's an app, okay? There's an app right there. And also, but the point of showing you this was to show you the menu button, okay?
Yeah, slides out, right?
Yep.
Brings up another window when you select an item.
Right. And App Inventor does not have the capability to do that. Now you can do something similar to that, okay? So let's see how we can do something like that in App Inventor. Just for for those of you who want to kind of do something like that. Okay. So we'll go to projects, and well, let's just use this one as an example. Get them all. Okay. So let's say you want to kind of make this more professional and have a menu and stuff like that. Okay. So one thing you can do is just to use something to trigger. Okay. Now this is something I did not originate this idea. I think Angela, who usually sits here, she figured out that she can use a spinner to do something to emulate the effect of a menu. Okay. So the way you can do this is, I think with an image it cannot detect whether you click it or not, so you have to use a button. So it has to be something that can respond to a click. okay, and the button can respond to a click. It's probably the simplest component to do that. So the next thing you want to do is to change this. Instead of using text, you make it an image button. Okay, that's pretty easy to do. You just go to pictures. Okay, there's a property here for the picture, and just pick a picture or draw a picture of a menu button. Okay, which is just 3 lines. Okay. So I'm not going to do that here. But inside, you also want to drag and drop a spinner. Okay, there we go. So where you put the spinner is actually not important. Okay, so let me do one more thing first. So we'll go to layout, and then we'll go do a horizontal arrangement, and then we'll put the button into the horizontal arrangement, and then we'll also put the spinner into the horizontal arrangement, which is not going to look right, okay, because it's going to be this is the spinner, by the way. Okay, the spinner is basically just a drop-down menu box. Okay, so the trick to do this, and once again, this is not my idea. Okay, Angela tested this and figure out how to do this. So the way to do this is not to turn off visibility. If you turn off visibility, it won't work. Okay, I'm not
Visibility will also disable basically, right?
Yeah, you have to make sure the visibility is on. And the way you do it is to you basically make it disappear by specifying the width to be 0. Okay, now you can say that, oh, but it's still here, but when you run the app, it's no longer there. Okay, it is completely invisible. Okay, so you say, okay, then what is the whole thing? I mean, because these two things are not connected. The button itself is not connected to this to the spinner itself. So the way you do this is in the blocks. You go to, okay, this may not be the best program because I have a lot of stuff in it already. Okay, so you go to the button, and you say when the button is clicked, which is basically clicking the quote-unquote menu button, but we don't have a menu. So what you do is you can say, okay, spinner, show yourself. You can do this. So now you're typing in a button to trigger, and then you say, show the content of the spinner, which actually grays out your entire screen and show you the options available. Okay. So let's just check it out. Okay, let's just find out how this works. Okay, because I know it does work. So you can for testing purposes, I'm just going to use a string to initialize the elements. And I think it has to be comma separated. Let me just double check. It's this one here. Yep, comma separated. There we go. So we go back to the designer and just give it a static list of stuff as options. Okay, so we can say settings, configure, help. Okay, so typical items that you find in the menu. Okay. So we'll just use these 3, just as an example. And the prompt, I'm not going to use a prompt because the prompt is what is displayed on the device, on the thing itself. Okay, so it does not really matter in this case because it doesn't even show. Okay, so we'll just go ahead and specify this much code. We'll go do a build. By the way, this is cross compilation. Okay, the compiling is done on the server on the other side, but it is cross compilation. So we'll build the APK file, and then we'll go back to this side and just go ahead and start up our usual tools. Okay, it's Android Studio bin Studio. And you can see how every single time we start, despite me trying to keep it up to date all the time, there's always another update, which also makes it not work very well at the lab machines, where they have deep freeze to basically return everything back to a known state at the beginning of the semester. Okay, so next semester we definitely will use the external hard drive approach.
But this is because Google uses this. Google developers use this, right? That's why they're always updating, because they want to have the latest with their developers.
Correct. Yep. But I think in general, when you look at software of all kinds, the complexity of software these days is to the point where, you will see continual updating. Have you guys heard about the public transit system in San Francisco?
That's not BART?
No. BART is for the entire Bay Area, but in San Francisco alone, it is
Muni, right?
Muni. That's it. Muni got hacked over the weekend. You guys didn't know? Okay, so I'll show you that too. Okay, so we need to switch to a done terminal and use ADB. Remember the command line tool to upload the program. So that's ADB. Okay, so we'll make sure we are attached correctly. Here we go. Name is getthemall.apk. There we go. All right, so let's go start get them all. Okay, so I know it doesn't look like a menu button, but that's just because I didn't make the graphical thing to make it look like one. So when I click it, it shows this. Even though the spinner itself is completely invisible, it can still bring up the spinner box itself. So when you click on one of these things, that in return can generate its own event. Then you can bring up the next screen corresponding to just settings, configure, or help. So it's not actual a menu, but you can emulate the functioning of a menu by using this thing.
There's another component too that's not the spinner. There's one more component that's not the spinner.
This is the spinner.
Yeah, but there's another one that does kind of a menu-ish.
Correct.
It's like not the list view, but
You can do a
Is it list view?
a list view and a list picker. Those two are related. A list view is static. In other words, if you use a list view, you have to tell it how much space it has, and then if necessary, it can scroll. But it is a fixed size, and it's a static component. A list picker may be the one that you're looking for.
Just wondering what the little difference would be. I know the spinner, the problem with that I had is that if you select the same item, it doesn't trigger the event.
Right.
So I had to always default it to a non.
Correct.
Yeah.
The only time it triggers an event is when the selection has changed.
Yeah.
So before you pop it up, you have to make it go to a particular thing that people won't pick, like select one of the following.
Right. That's
Then
exactly
they have to choose something else, and then the change of the selection is what is causing the event to happen. But with a list picker, it starts with a button. The question is, can a list picker be manually triggered by a button? That's what makes the other one work. Okay, so we can always give it a try, right? So go back to blocks, go to a list picker this time, and go through what it can do. Well, it does have an open, so potentially you can do about the same thing. Well, we can just give it a try. So list. Yeah, we'll just give it a try here, and we'll have the same thing. Help, settings, configure, help here. We go back to blocks, and instead of doing this, we'll go to a list picker and make it open. Okay. And also go back to the designer and make this we'll make it almost invisible by setting its either height or width to 0. You can make both a 0, so it is no longer visible completely. There we go. Height being 0, so it's no longer taking any space. But I think what this will happen is it will still drop down from here. It will drop down from the position of the list picker itself,
Okay.
as opposed to the other one, which is not linked to the location
Just opens
of
up
the
in the middle, right?
spinner itself. It just pops open in the middle.
Okay.
But that's just my guess, okay? So the best way is to give it a try, find out. But that's one thing that we couldn't do in App Inventor, because App Inventor has no concept of a menu at all.
And the spinner can't have image, basically, right? If the spinner can have an image, you can do it all in one.
You mean what it displays?
Yeah, well, like you're using a button with an image in order to make it look like a menu.
Right.
And the spinner doesn't have that capability, basically. It doesn't have a image.
Correct. Yep. It has no option to use an image. Okay, so it looks different. I mean, this
Yeah.
one looks, completely different. But I think it's the same thing. When you pick something, it generates an event. And when you go back to blocks and go to,
Pre-selected. I don't think it gets pre-selected on that one. So you don't have,
you can
I don't-
pre-select. You can always pre-select.
But I don't think you run into the problem where if something's already selected and it doesn't trigger. I think you can have it where anything will.
You mean after picking?
Yeah,
when
like
we
the
want-
spinner has something that once you pick it, it's set to that.
Right, it remembers.
It remembers.
I think a list picker does the same thing too. It
Oh, it
does
does.
remember.
It does
Yep.
remember.
But the event is different. Okay, when you look at a spinner, it has after selecting. When you look at a list picker, it has more events. It has after picking. But I think it does not generate after picking if it's the same thing.
Oh, okay.
But you have before picking as an option, which allows you to event to raise when the button of the component is clicked or when the list is shown using the open block. This event occurs before the list of items is displayed. So this is your chance of setting the selection to a default one where people have to pick something else. But this is basically the way to emulate the effect of a menu, so that when you click on one of these things, it can open up a new screen to handle it, which is basically what a normal menu item would do. I'm just double checking here to see whether that's what it does in this case. Yeah, it just opens a new screen when you pick one of the items. So in this case, if I click on configure, you can have another screen that is just for configuration, and then open that screen instead. So it will still have the same effect as a menu button. It's just not
Doesn't slide.
exactly. It doesn't slide if it have all the fancy animation.
Now in Java, do you have to have the menu duplicated? Like in this case, you'd have to drag it to the backpack and
Correct.
then duplicate it, right?
Yep.
You have to do that when you're doing Java?
I think in Java you can't set a static menu structure.
Okay, that will go across that application.
I don't think it goes across. I think it only applies to a screen.
A screen, so it's
Yeah.
the same way, you have to
Yeah.
duplicate it.
Yep. Because the most important organization unit in an app is a screen. So every screen has its own, configuration. And if you have screens that you do not want to have a menu button, then they won't have the menu button. But they do not necessarily share the same menu.
Okay.
Yep. All right. So you can see this one looks different. Now, how do you know whether it will handle the same selection twice? Well, we just changed the blocks here a little bit, okay, and we just need a way to find out whether it is quote unquote activated or not. So we go to the list picker in this case, and say after picking. We just needed to do something that is different. Okay, we'll change the canvas background color. Okay, that will make it very obvious. So we say canvas, change your background color. always just make up a new color. Now, in real testing, this may not be the best thing to do because it can end up with the same color even though it's random. But just for fun, it is okay.
What's the chance? 255 times 255?
It'll be 1 over
Keep in mind-
255 to the cube.
To the cube.
Yep.
You have to keep in mind that humans can't really tell the difference between a lot of colors. So like, even if they aren't exactly the same color for a computer, they may be close enough to the same color that humans can actually tell the difference. So like, you have to also keep that consideration in mind if you want them to actually look visibly different.
You can always invert it. You can always get the current color and just invert every single component. So unless you have like really just gray, then it won't be very visible. But if you have anything other than just gray, then you can tell that it's inverting. But we're just having fun here. We're just testing it.
A few times.
Yeah, we can do it a few times too. Because I think with both a list picker or a spinner, it still has the same problem. If you select an item and you select it again, it doesn't.
Default it back to the non-selectable
Yep.
item.
Yep. And then you can just call the first one, select one of the following. Okay, here we go, almost there. Okay, so we'll click settings and click settings again. Oh, it does capture every single time. So Angela must be using a spinner instead of a list picker.
Because she's defaulting.
Because in her case, she could not get it to generate another
That's
event.
the same thing I did. I'm using a spinner, but I was considering moving to this.
Okay.
Because
So-
of it. But I did the same thing. I just defaulted it to a select from
Right.
the following.
But this seems to be a better solution.
Yeah, I seem like the way she customized the buttons to do it. I haven't done that.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Good.
It still doesn't look right because the button doesn't look like a menu button. But once you change it,
Yeah,
then
but
it.
we can just cut it off of some other app, right?
Yep. 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 There you go. All right. So now we have menus, which is really kind of an archaic, concept. It's just that people are used to it, so people expect it.
Yeah, menus have been around for, I guess, a few years now.
Yep.
Probably since, but
So we don't really have any way to structure other than a linear list. Okay, so you cannot say, okay, when I get to this item, it would pop up a submenu, and then after that, it would pop up a submenu. There are no submenus. The concept of a submenu doesn't really work well on a mobile device because we don't have enough screen space to do it. Okay, so it's actually better off if you just start a new screen, and then in the new screen you present other options instead of using a structured menu. All right. Well, we talked about application-wide variables versus global variables. We do not have application-wide variables except for stuff that we put into TinyDB. So that's the only way to use quote-unquote application-wide variables. Otherwise, so-called global variables are specific to screens and they're not specific to the app. Okay, and this is true whether you're doing App Inventor programs or whether you're doing actual Android programming. Because in actual Android programming, a screen is represented by an object, and as a result, it has the screen. There are no visibility between screens. They cannot see each other. So this is still true for the other ones. Because we use a TinyDB, we automatically have the ability to save and load from persistent storage. So that part is already a given with TinyDB. User interaction, we talked about text boxes. Checkbox is basically just a button where it maintains its own state. Regular buttons, radio buttons, which are basically, they have to work inside the group because it has to be only one of those can be chosen. So a list view can be useful for that purpose because that's just one of the things that you can choose. A toggle is basically just a checkbox because it's either on or off, and you toggle it. If it's on, you toggle it off. If it's off, you toggle it back on, which is the same thing as a checkbox. We talked about drawing in 2D. Okay, for the past few weeks, we have been focusing on that one little program where you draw some random painter balls, and you have to draw a line to connect them. User interface specific variables. We don't have anything like that, okay, except for the components. How to switch from one screen to another. We talked about that really early on in the semester. Okay, we talked about how to create multiple screens and how to not only switch from one screen to another, but also how to pass things, how to pass information from one screen to another screen. And also when you go back, how do you pass the result of one screen back to another screen. So we got that already done. How to start an application from another application. Yes, we talked about that. It is the activity starter component, okay, which we talked about 2 weeks ago. We also talked about how to start up most other things that you can start up in Android, which is really helpful because now your app can now say, okay, I do not know how to navigate, but I know where you're supposed to go to. So you can start up Google Navigation and specify the actual destination address and let Google Navigation to deal with it. Okay. App market, publication of an application. We didn't really do a whole lot of this, so this is potentially something that we can look into for the rest of this. Well, maybe for one class. Okay, we can look into this. Any other questions? Any questions about the curriculum of this class? This is the curriculum. These are the topic list. So I think we hit every single one of these. Okay, some more in depth than the other ones. Any questions? Any questions? So besides a doorbell, okay, what else do you think it would be the next thing that can use an app that can use apps to market it, to make the hardware more marketable? I saw a few things over the weekend. Let's see. That's it. Segway. Yeah, Segway. You would say, Segway, who uses Segway anymore? Well, let me try to remember which parking lot. KP, that's it. KP International. It used to have a name of Koreana. They used to only sell Asian/Oriental type of food, but now it's called KP International because they also sell Eastern European, Mexican, and all kinds of stuff. Okay, so we saw the security guard at KP on a Segway. Now we are not talking about your usual, typical, Segway. This one has tactical wheels. Like they're really fat, big tires. Okay, so really good traction in the parking lot. It's not just for indoor use, but also for outdoor use. But how does it connect to an app? Okay, so let's look it up. Segway. How do you spell Segway? Okay. I think it's close enough. Yes, it is. Oh, the one that the security guard was using is kind of like this one. It's called the Segway PT, so you can see how it has big stub. Well, you cannot see, but with enough contrast, you can see the stubby tires. So these are good for, I guess, snow and mud raining. You can use your Segway in snow and also mud and stuff like that. Okay. But the reason why I brought up Segway is because Segway Bluetooth. Not the hoverboard. There we go. I guess the sound is not that important. I got to see this because of Amazon Prime. It says, oh, look, we got, Cyber Monday deals, and one of the first items that popped up was this thing. No, I did not order one.
How much was it?
I think it's like $600 or so, $500 or $600. So that's the part, okay? You can use your phone to drive it remotely. That's an app, okay? And then the other thing I can also see, having an app being really useful, is your app. Okay, look at the guy; he's looking at his app the whole time. So I think he's either programming his app or using the app to drive it. Just keep watching. There's another point in this video where the app concept is important. Well, that's going to be the first thing we hack. Right there. There you go. You can lock it. So you can see how something like this, a segue, which is by itself an interesting concept, standalone product. But with apps, you can always make it more marketable. If somebody else makes another segue, okay, another machine like this, but without the app connectivity, you can see how the app can make a difference in terms of whether people will use it or not. Because you can actually, in a way, you can summon your segue to you. Okay, so you can be it's just sitting here, and then you can just have your segue to navigate to you, so that you don't have to go find your segue. And then the other thing about having an app connectivity has to do with making the segue less expensive to manufacture. So let's just say that the segue has no app connectivity. How do you know the battery status, or what is the remaining range based on how far you have gone so far, how your power consumption has been like for the past 2 miles? You will need its own dedicated display on the Segway, and that's going to be expensive. But by using just a Bluetooth chipset, which is like dirt cheap these days, on the Segway itself has no need of any actual display, maybe just a few LEDs to say that yes, I'm getting charged, I am charged, and that's about it. But for everything else, you can now use an app to display on a mobile device. And you can pretty much assume that someone who's going to use a Segway probably has access to a mobile device. So is that making any sense? The app itself can be profitable, but at the same time, a lot of devices can use apps to basically use app as a marketing advantage. Anything else? I mean, did you guys remember I used a toothbrush as an example, like many weeks ago? Well, toothbrush, okay? Toothbrush, and they use apps to sell toothbrush. What else? I mean, what else do you think it can benefit from apps? Yep.
This doesn't have to do with your phone, but Oculus has like touch controllers that can sense your hand gestures. So if you have like a robotic hand or whatever, you can use those touch controls to actually
I can see how our president-elect can benefit from gesture controlled apps. He has some, okay, he has quite a few really kind of distinct gestures. So he can just do the gesture, and then something can announce what he actually is thinking at that time. That would be kind of cool. But that's also kind of cool because if you can integrate gesture recognition with a segue, well, maybe not. Okay, I take it back. That can be bad because the segue can misinterpret and think that you want an emergency stop when you really don't want an emergency stop. Did you guys remember I just mentioned something about torque wrenches? No? You don't remember? Okay. So a torque wrench is a wrench, okay, but it has a way to measure torque. Okay, so this way you don't over torque something. It is particularly important when you are putting your wheel back onto your car. The lug nut needs to be torqued properly. Okay, if you torque it too much, okay, the next time it won't come loose at all. If you don't torque it enough, really bad things can happen too, because you may find your vehicle to only running on 3 wheels, okay, when you're on the highway. That actually happened to my father-in-law's brother, because my father-in-law decided to help him put, to fix a tire. So when he put it back on, I guess he didn't torque it, properly. So on the highway, one wheel just kind of flew off. It didn't crash. So the car did not actually crash, but I guess it was a kind of dangerous situation. Okay, but the point is, okay, some of these things are now electronic. So if you look it up, what is the name of the brand? The mechanics use a lot, and it's usually coming in the color red.
Craftsman, Rigid. Craftsman?
No.
Snap-on.
Snap-on, that's it. Snap-on. Okay, so with Snap-on, okay, even Craftsman has one. Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna click the zoom. There you go. It's kind of fuzzy. I guess it will get clear once it. That really is fuzzy. Well, let's try again. Yep, it is fuzzy. Okay, it's okay. That's not the point. The point is, with an electronic torque wrench, you need user interface elements on the wrench itself. Okay, so there are buttons here that can help you set the actual amount of torque. There's a screen to display where the setting is, and I guess this thing will beep when it has reached the amount of torque that you specify. Okay, because the torque wrench doesn't really quite the electronic torque wrench doesn't really limit the torque. It doesn't click like a real one. It just beeps to let you know that you have reached the set amount of torque. Okay, so you have to stop putting more torque on it. But you can also see how this can actually get 1, less expensive, 2, more reliable, and 3, far more marketable by getting rid of the user interface at all on the device itself. Make it Bluetooth connected and make an app so that when you use the torque wrench, you have an app that can basically be used to set the torque. And once you're done with setting the torque, you can put your phone away. Okay, because as long as you can still hear your phone, you can put it away. So when you torque, it will just beep your phone when you have reached the designated amount of torque. And you can even set it to like multiple levels. I think this is fairly simple, where you set one torque amount. When it reaches that torque, it will just beep you and let you know that it has reached that amount of torque. But you can also set up when it's connected to a phone, you can set up like a yellow range and a red range. Okay, so at the yellow range, it will just kind of give you an alert, but at the red range, it will give you a constant beep, so that you know, okay, we're getting close. Okay, now you can stop. Okay, you can see how it can be useful for training purposes. Okay? If you want to have a trainee, in an auto mechanic shop, that can be very useful because you can actually see how your apprentice is doing by monitoring the amount of torque remotely. And I will bet you that changing this thing from having its own user interface, LCD, buttons, and all kinds of electronics inside, by turning all of these things, take it away, replace it with a Bluetooth chip, it will get cheaper. if it's not going to be more expensive, you'll get less expensive. What is going to be the new expense? Which is related to you, and that's maybe one of the reasons why you're here.
Develop the app.
Developing the app and maintaining the app. Okay, it's not just a one-time development, because with any app, any type of program, there's ongoing maintenance as well. Okay, the app that I just showed you about the doorbell thing, the first generation app does not have quote-unquote a live view. In other words, you cannot see out of that camera unless somebody rings your bell. That's the first generation app. They changed it to include a live view, so now it is on demand. I can just hook up to my phone, connect my phone to my doorbell, and view outside the outside anytime I want to. It's a new feature, but it's in the app itself. Okay, it also requires maintenance for the app. Okay, is that making any sense so far? All of this stuff. So if a torque wrench and a toothbrush can utilize Bluetooth and apps to communicate with it, I don't think there's anything that particularly is the limit of what you can hook up to your mobile app. If it's inexpensive enough, I can see mechanical pencils having an app. You are now running out of lead. You only got 2 leads left, which is good for, according to my usage monitoring, is only good for another day or so. And Amazon Prime can get you a new
Today.
Yep, you can get it today. And do you authorize? If you do, click.
Where's the autobot?
Yep.
Right, yes.
Right. Yes. Okay. Well, yeah. Well, if your pencil has accelerometer, high resolution. Well, we have those devices already. What is the name of that thing? Scribe? Okay, I don't think people use it anymore, but at one point it was kind of like a fad.
Maybe
It's
you can
called,
make a backup of what you write as well onto your computer.
yeah, it's called a scribe. It's a scribe pen or live scribe. I guess people still use it. And I think this one, the idea of a scribe is it is stand-alone. It doesn't need an app to run. But you can also see how an app can really enhance a device like that. It's a pen, okay? It's a computer pretending to be a pen. And if I remember correctly, they still need to be written on special notes. Okay, let me just double check here. Okay, take the stress out of test and meeting with the live scribe, record everything, draw, blah, 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 blah. Okay, yeah, so it still need a live scribe paper because it has special dots, so the optical sensor can track the dots. So this is probably still using a fairly old accelerometer technology because otherwise it should be able to see what you're drawing or what you're writing just by detecting the acceleration of the device itself. Yeah, but something like that, you can imagine a pencil that looks like a regular pencil, but it's actually a smart device connected to your phone, so that whatever you draw using your pencil is actually captured by your phone, since your phone is cloud connected. So everything that you write is also automatically uploaded to the cloud. Okay, if you lose your piece of paper, it's no big deal. I mean, it's just it's just a medium so that you're familiar with that let you do the interaction. But once it is recorded, it's up on the web. Are there any questions? I don't think App Inventor has the necessary resolution and the speed to do handwriting capturing while you write. Okay, but you can imagine that there are devices, special purpose devices that can do it. Google is actually developing that particular sensor. Do you guys know about that project? Okay, I'll just do this as the last thing. Okay, so Google Johnny Chang, I think C-H-E-U-N-G. Could be wrong. Okay, let me see. Yep, Google Chang.
Session paused.
And maybe this is the wrong Johnny. Johnny Cash, Johnny Lee. There we go. Johnny Lee is the person. And we want to look up Google. So this guy is currently working on a high resolution accelerometer hardware and software combination at Google. The claim is if you just turn on the tracking device without GPS, okay, you can say, okay, I'm starting here, and you go out, you walk around the campus a little bit, you come back to exactly the same spot, and your phone can agree with you and to say that you're at the same spot. And that's all without GPS, just by tracking the motion that you go through while you walk around. It's accurate enough to do what we call dead reckoning, high resolution. Okay. Which is great because there are times when GPS is not available, like on an airplane. Okay, when your phone is on airplane mode, there's no GPS. Okay, because you're required to turn off all the electronics, or at least the ones that will emit radio wave. So dead reckoning can still be useful because you can actually track the plane's direction and how it's turning and stuff like that. So it's kind of cool. All right, well, we are running out of time today. I will be at the lab today, okay, so we are not canceling lab, so I would suggest that you work on your project, okay, and if you see any questions, if you have any questions, I can answer those questions during the lab time.
Do you happen to know when the last day of class is?
The last day of class. Okay, so let's look it up. So it's probably under the exam schedule. So I guess the last day is December 15th.
That's right around the corner. Scary.
Yep, it is scary. But we got everything done in this class already, so we are good.
What about final exam?
Yeah, that's what I was getting at.
What we will do final?
The final exam will resemble your midterms a little bit. So I will probably pick something that is doable within 2 hours because you have 2 hours in the final exam. So I'll pick something that you can do within 2 hours as the actual final exam.
And then our final project is due the same time?
Your final project is due on the last day of the final week. So that will be on the 15th of December. So you have a little bit more time to work on your final project, but I would definitely...
You're doing the exam before then?
Yes. But I would definitely say, at this time, you should be fine-tuning your project. So it should be, for the most part, done. You should be just fine-tuning it. Okay? Alrighty. So let's go to the lab.